Hey, this is Cole Vallis, Tommy Elliott, and Hush from the Fox TV show Gotham, and you're listening to SuperHouse. Everything you need to know, Batman.
Don't need to wear the headphones, but all right.
That's true. Batman.
You don't know what I'm listening to.
That's not even plugged in. Welcome to SuperHouse, and we are back with part 2 of the Batman Begins deep dive in comics versus Nolan. So, once again, I am Ben Wan, the man who knows too much about Batman, and I'm joined with...
Andrew, everybody, what's going on?
Hey, this Wolfie. Welcome.
And Wolfie's our scorekeeper.
Anticlimactic. Yes. Oh, yes, a scorekeeper.
And last time we ended off with, in terms of we are comparing Nolan's interpretation in Batman Begins versus the comics that he based everything on. Last time, if you caught our last episode, we left off on, what was the score?
The score is we got 5 comics on the comics tally.
All right.
And then he'll have to count these notches.
Oh, man.
I think it's 8.
And then 8 for the movie.
Okay.
The world.
So we have, all right, it's 5 to 8 in the comics, but we still have plenty more to go with the movie. So who will win? Let's find out.
Movie.
We all win is the answer.
Yes.
I don't know. I have no idea.
We're about to find out. Okay, so
I'm
we
just
left
happy
off.
to be everybody.
You lose.
We left off with the scene where Batman has debuted. He has finally said, "I'm Batman." Falcone until the bum on the street, nice coat. So other things that happened here that I did not mention last time is that in the original script there was a little bit more when it came to Judge Faden. Now, if you don't remember who Judge Faden is, I don't blame you. He wasn't the most memorable character, but he was the judge who was on Falcone's payroll. And when Batman saved Rachel Dawes, he threw a bunch of photos of Judge Faden. He's just like leverage with him, like, and some woman.
Oh, yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So in the original script, we got to see Bruce Wayne do some recon as a homeless man, take some pictures, which is where the pictures come from. And then when he, the same night that he debuts as Batman, he actually tracks down the limo that Phelan is, crashes through it, and tells him the whole line from year one, where it's just like, "You have eaten well.
Oh, yeah.
Gotham is starved. Your feast is over."
Does he say that in Batman Begins?
He said it in the script.
Oh, really?
He said it in the script, and so but I think they wanted to say, like, "Hey, let's move the limo thing to Falcone instead of
That
Faden."
line's too nerdy.
They made David Goyer sit down. Just let the cheerio chap.
Or
The
maybe
big boys.
that's maybe Bale just couldn't say it. He's just like,
What is a 10-plus woman, a 10-plus broad walk into this picture?
Hey,
Wait,
Bob Kane was dead at this point.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
Do I move your lights? Do you want me to move your lights?
You want me to move your fucking lights down?
And that's why
On the scene.
that's
We're
why the
all
scene
over
didn't
the
work.
place.
He says, "You eaten well as Gotham starved. This ends tonight." So that was the original scene with a confrontation with the limo. There was a different version of "I'm Batman."
Okay.
Falcone shows up at the dock, sees Batman fighting, and he aims a shotgun at Batman. And it's just him standing with Batman's back to him. And Falcone's like, "Who the hell are you?" And he pulls the trigger, and you hear this click. And Batman turns around, and he opens his hand, and it has the shells of the shotgun, and he says, "I'm Batman."
That would have been cool, too.
Throws the shells at him.
And it explodes in his face.
It's not a gun. It's just me throwing it.
I just answered an ad on Craigslist.
It's a shuriken.
So it is kind of like
Shotgun.
There's a scene in Dark Victory that's like that, where he does that to Tony Zuko. On that, where
Damn Zuko.
yeah, he's like, "You have a problem, Tony," and then Zuko says, "Yeah, I got lots of problems." And then he sees his Batman, and then
Batman turns around and he says, "From one professional to another."
Yeah,
he originally had that line.
Yeah. No, and then Batman goes after
throws a
Zuko.
shotgun
Yeah,
shell
so he's
at
just
him.
like, "You have a problem, Tony." He's like, "Yeah, tell me about it." And then he turns and sees
You're having
Batman,
hallucinations.
and Tony tries to grab a gun, and then Batman puts his fist down on the table, revealing all the shells. And then he's like, "Now you have a problem with me." So
All right.
now that's his no kill, no guns policy. So
And then he does this thing, and then
he's
he
just
the
Patoozy.
I'm missing the
Dances
sound
around.
effects these days.
Yes, that's the one thing this movie
can-
missed was Batman dancing
They can
around.
style that. They can modernize that.
Ben's pissed, man.
Have him
Have him do this.
We need
Hell hath no fury like a Ben scorn.
So after
Remember that well, children.
yes. So after he gives the evidence to Rachel Dawes for all the leverage, we then cut to a scene where Gordon shows up at the docks and he finds that Falcone is strapped to the light, and everyone's just like, "What is that?" And in the original script, there was a line that they thankfully cut where some cop's like, looks like a bat. So obviously, they didn't need to do that. But this is
That guy running over there. He looks like some sort of Batman.
cut to the newspaper. Says Batman.
It's the bat.
He looks like he's
man.
beginning. That's the
my
movie I
God.
saw.
This is not how it happened in the movie. What happened in the movie is this is the origin of the bat signal, where he had strapped Falcone to the light, and that inspires Gordon to put the bat signal on.
He gave us
light.
the signal.
No, he says I couldn't find any mob bosses.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right.
So in the comic, the closest we got is the comic called Prey, the story arc of Hugo Strange, and Gordon kind of puts it up and flashes it briefly to alert Batman, hey, this is what's going on. The mayor's set out a task force against you and everything. He was trying to be covert, which doesn't quite make any sense because he was shining the signal, but it's only briefly, as opposed to in the comics where he only has
see
it
this
out.
light.
Yeah. So that's the comic book version of the Bat Signal origin, at least before the movie. And we have the movie version. So once again, let's try to let's weigh the two. Movie version with Falcone strapped to it that inspires Gordon later, or the comic version where Gordon just kind of does it to quickly get Batman's attention.
I kind of got a movie on this one probably.
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that likes how do you explain that? And where does this come from?
Yeah.
And how does that work in our world? Like sometimes it's good.
And this
Sometimes
is
it's
yeah.
shitty.
So the comic version is originally Gordon's just like, I want to make a bat light.
I want to contact him. Yeah, there's not really a lot of other origins.
You've
of
inspired
Bat
me to
Signal.
get back into welding,
Yeah.
Batman. Look what
Should
I've
have
made
just
for you.
emailed this.
Created
Our friendship is
I 3D
now
printed
complete.
this.
You could have just texted me. Blah, blah, all
I
right,
sure
put a
have
big
a lot
ass
of
light in the sky
a lot
so
of time
everybody
on
knows
my
I'm
hands
coming.
these weekends.
Yeah. Well, I always liked how it was established, because that's how I always saw it, is that the bat signal is not just to alert Batman that they need his help, but also to alert criminals out there that he's coming for you.
Yeah, I mean,
Symbolic
look,
message
you
to it.
cannot
They-
not have it. You need the bat
They touch
signal.
on that in Rises a little bit. I
Yeah, a
think.
little bit. With the flame bat
Yeah.
that he had time to do the gas.
No, the
Wasn't
little opening
there-
montage
or
thing.
maybe
I'm not
yeah.
going out tonight.
It's one of them. Yeah, it's one
No,
of
in
them.
the
Yeah,
beginning
I'm
of
not
Dark
going out
Knight.
to- Is
That's
it Dark
the
Knight?
beginning of Dark
Okay,
Knight,
yeah. Yeah, that one.
No, he's retired at the beginning of Rises.
that movie.
He wouldn't do that.
They're all one movie to me, really.
Oh yeah, he gave up
He gave up twice, but anyway.
twice.
The verdict goes to the movie, so that goes to that
Yeah,
one.
got
So
it.
Wait, well, you were a movie as well.
Nine
well,
to
I'm
5.
movie as well, but even so, there's three of us. So even if you two like the movie and I like the comic better, that cancels me out.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
I
Anyway.
just didn't get your opinion anyway.
No. I mean, I
wanna know
love
your opinion.
This is my favorite origin of the Bat Signal
Okay.
because of that. So it's one of the
Yeah.
best. I
Are
think.
there other besides that one time in the
There
comic?
is a version in Zero Year where Gordon does something similar to the Prey one, where he has to shine the signal during the time. And this is a time where Riddler's had the whole blackout on the city, if you guys have read the 0 Year comic. And it's somewhat similar to before, where it kind of shines as like a symbol as well as a signal. So I think another good origin of the Bat Signal was in the original Sam Hamm draft for '89, where Alexander Knox and Vicky Vale are at the parade at the end, with the Joker, and they see that oh my God, the balloons all have big gas in it, and we need to warn Batman. And Alexander Knox is like, I got an idea. And he actually creates the bat signal because he uses one of the, those searchlights that are part of the parade.
Uh-huh.
He puts the bat signal on that to alert Batman, and he shines it on the float. Like, hey,
Yeah.
Batman, like this is the stuff to go after.
That's cool.
And then the Joker's henchmen kill him.
Which
Which did not happen in the movie. Yeah. So
I do like those bits in movies sometimes when they're not too heavy-handed. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's how that.
Yeah, because it
more
makes
or
sense
less
for that
came
story.
about. And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I like both, I guess, movie versions, the one that did make it to the '89 movie, or the Batman Begins the one, more than the comics, where it's just kind of just like, all right, I guess we got to explain this now. So here's how we do this.
All Gordon had was a really high-powered light and
got a
some,
flashlight.
stapler and
I
some
got this.
pencils and things. He's like, why don't we have any more office supplies around here?
I just imagine Gordon buying a big light with the police money and then getting a stencil out and fucking making it himself.
Well, I think in
I
one,
feel
in one of the
Batman will
comics,
love this.
it was like a cloth thing that he would like put on originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, this is dumb, and then he just started painting it with the fucking
Wow.
on it because like this is dumb because like in the beginning it was sort of unsanctioned that he would be turning to Batman, and in post crisis Gordon's started working with Batman when he was a lieutenant. He wasn't
Right.
actually the police. He wasn't the head guy.
He wasn't commissioner.
when he had more time on his hands, obviously.
Yes.
Clang, clang.
When they were
sound
casting this, Gary Oldman was not the first choice for Gordon.
yeah,
He had
No
Nolan
shit.
had gone to offer it to Chris Cooper.
Ah.
Chris Cooper was offered. He said, "quote I was approached about that and chose not to do it." He had just done a lot of movies,
Right.
and he decided that it was time for him to take a break.
Yeah.
Right.
And he took a long break. I haven't seen him in anything.
He was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because he
right.
decided to be in that instead of Batman Begins.
And Mr. Rogers recently.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I better jump on this.
I better be Norman Osborn in this franchise.
They're
dead.
filming those cameras.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh man.
Grandpa, quit yelling at the wall. You gotta get out of the house. Anyway.
All right, the next one goes into Batman himself on a few differences. Some of them kind of superficial, but we'll go into them. So the actual Batsuit, Batman's Batsuit in the film, obviously is quite different from what's in the comics. In the comics, what you're used to seeing is the two-toned, where it's the black bat over a gray tunic, a yellow utility belt, and the sort of overall gray and black, or sometimes gray and blue color. And instead, this was all black, sort of taking after the Burton Schumacher movies, and said to be a Nomex survival suit for advanced infantry.
Nomex.
Yes.
No mix?
Yes, that's what Lucius Fox says.
What's no mix supposed to be?
I have no
It's like
idea.
Gore-Tex.
Yeah,
It's like
Okay.
Gore-Tex. Except
that explains it.
the opposite.
Right.
This isn't a Seinfeld reference. Great.
Very
So, that's
astute.
great.
So in here, everything is black as well as the symbol. So the symbol, it's just insignia, sort of blends in with the rest of it. You don't really get to
I
see
got
it.
to ask you a question about
Yes.
this. I was not following Batman movies as closely as I am these days.
Right.
So whenever this was revealed,
Yeah.
did the fucking 2004 internet blow the fuck up?
Yes, because of I remember the first image of it because it was a very gritty image.
Okay.
Of him. And yes, it was black rubber, and some people like me were just like, okay, I mean, I guess I've seen that, but it's cool. Batman's back.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
the tone of it. It was almost like the sepia-looking coloring.
Right.
We'll put it up for you over here, but it's like the sepia-looking coloring, and just nobody had really seen it like that before.
Okay.
And you could tell that Bale had been working out because it had shown, like, beforehand the muscles in the bat
machinist?
suit. Yeah, well, like beforehand the muscles in the suit were like the
Sculpted.
sculpted Greek god
Yeah.
type sculpted rudder. This
Oh, yeah.
one,
Like me.
like you couldn't really see. Yes, of course. You couldn't really see this part, but you could see like the overall musculature and the
Okay.
shoulders and everything. And even though that part of that was rubbery, there's no way that Bale had to have been that built in order to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
Bale had a hell of a time trying to get out from machinist shape into this. He ate a shit ton of like pizza and bread between the machinist and his Batman Begins audition.
Right.
Because he went one right after the other.
Dang.
Yeah,
because he
it's
didn't
like
want
pizza
to
and ice cream or something.
Yeah, like he didn't want to show up to the
It's a
machinist.
good way to get gout.
Yeah, he didn't want to show up to the Batman audition in his machinist shape because then he
Yeah.
would never
Oh,
get
yeah.
the part. So he had to bulk up immediately
Right.
for that, and then he had to cut down because then they're just like, now you're too fat for the suit, and they started calling him Fat Man.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
And he cried.
So this whole yo-yo diet.
Why do they
thing.
keep making fun of me?
I think my favorite story was when he asked Gary Oldman. Favorite story I heard was when he asked Gary Oldman how Gary Oldman did his weight loss or weight change
Crack.
for the Churchill movie, The Darkest Hour.
Oh, right.
And Gary Oldman was just like, it was all makeup. It was all makeup, man.
I got heavy into meth
And Bale's like,
for a
damn
good
it.
long summer, and here I am.
Gosh.
What was your name
dang
again?
Darn
Yes.
it.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting was the fact that the bat is blended in, kind of like the Batman Forever sonar suit, which is what the suit that was used for the audition. But I would also think that the reason why I like the black over the tunic is that I don't really see the point in him having the black bat on his chest anyway if you're not able to see it in some way. Like he is talking about being a symbol. He wants to have a symbol that is seen. So I figure like if you want to be blended in, then just keep it black and don't have it on. Or if you want to have the symbol on, then make the symbol stand out.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
my
a,
personal
yeah.
preference.
it was like
I
the
know it's-
realism aspect of keeping
Yeah,
it
yeah.
tactical and whatever.
Yeah.
he just needed a reminder if he was ever in a building and a broken piece of glass. He saw his reflection. He's like, "Oh,
yeah,
that's right."
Batman.
I've also heard this explanation for the comics
Yes.
where it's like he has a brighter symbol, like a yellow
Yeah.
symbol, in order so that so that the criminals will focus on the symbol and not his fists or something.
No. It's they don't focus. They shoot for the symbol. It's a target on his chest. So they
Right.
shoot his most protected area and don't shoot his head.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest target that when you strike him from the shadows.
Right.
So that was Frank Miller's interpretation of why there was a yellow bat insignia, and Bruce even says it in one of the original drafts for the '89 movie. Actually, when he tells Mickey
really?
about that. So I like that.
I think it's decent for it's a good explanation for
it's a
that.
good explanation
because it's got to be like the most Kevlar right here, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever he's got under there. And then, I mean, also you're dealing with a guy with an exposed jaw. Like, this is not like the most super realistic. It's a guy in a bat costume, for Christ's sakes. Just fucking let some things go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his voice as well has been very controversial, but we might as well dive into it. The Batman Christian Bale voice has been parodied all over the fucking internet.
Lauded as the most creative.
The best voice
history.
there ever was for any Batman.
Spot
For
on.
certain people, yes. The only time that his voice is really described as that type of growl is in year one, but he doesn't really. It's never really said that his voice is a growl. It says he says something about bringing a growl that he learned in Africa. So he uses that as like a tactic when he's fighting to sort of intimidate or make them feel like more like he's a creature. But it doesn't say anything about him using it as a voice.
What would that sound like, you think?
Please make a voice right now, Ben.
Basically, just what he did.
In the shadows.
Oh my God, that's fucking terrible.
I'm just thinking of like the Lion King. Yeah.
That's what Batman says in the shadows.
Like,
he's just
chanting
he's
that.
here.
It's
Going
Oh
in.
my God.
Damn it.
No, I imagine it's kind of like the grunting that you hear when like you watch a martial arts workout or something. When people just like that,
But more guttural.
with a little bit more guttural and more like more like rasp to it as well. It's only described once in year one, so it's not like somebody does it a lot.
In the
I'm just trying to
comics-
find
alright.
one. I'm just trying to find one instance where a growl was specified.
Are you
like,
getting to this though? In the comics, there's not much difference between the voices.
I'm saying in the comics, it's kind of up to your imagination
That's
on
right.
it. But
Yeah, they never-
he
Bad
doesn't.
omen.
Batman doesn't agree. But if
Batman toy.
there's a
fell down.
lot of different things that say that's kind of like an Eastwood impression,
Oh, yeah. Kind of gruff.
Oh, okay.
but kind of gruff, but like more quiet type of thing.
lucky.
Post
Yeah.
post Batman. Well, we've been kids ever since. I mean, when it first came out, but whenever the BTAS
Yeah.
Batman
yeah,
animated series came out, most people, including myself, read with Kevin Conroy's voice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
do you
I've
do that as
never-
well?
He made a discernment between the two voices.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne was always like a really kind of nice guy.
Yeah, and then
And
he brought
Batman?
it down. Yeah.
Robin,
Yeah.
I swear that you shouldn't be eating not vegetables. No, I don't know.
Nailed it. So we have.
That's all the shit.
Is this
in
a
my
joint?
opinion. In your the Superhouse co-host's
Okay.
opinion, right here, that's all the change you
Botched
need.
it.
You don't need all this
Yeah.
craziness going on.
I agree.
And when this first came out in 2005, I saw it and I liked it. I don't even remember like the voice being that big of a deal for me, but I feel like this whole voice thing became such a big deal probably after Dark Knight.
They're like,
Yeah.
oh, that is a good idea, but you did it totally wrong.
Like no one was
Yeah,
really
pretty much.
talking about
Ugh.
it that much when Batman
Not in
Begins
Begins,
was out.
but when Dark Knight came up, I think it was because it got like the common opinion is that it got worse as the movies went on.
Maybe it did.
How
Maybe
it went
did.
from because like he
Even
he throws
into-
the photos to Rachel is just like leverage to get things moving, and then rises is just like where's the trigger?
Yeah, Dark.
And I'm just like okay,
That's
fine.
people were laughing in the theater for Rises whenever that came out.
Well, yeah, the trailer for Rises, that little sneak peek that they
Yeah.
gave, it was like you couldn't hear Bane or like Bruce. It's like, what the fuck are we even? That Nolan always
Yeah.
playing his cards so close to the chest,
But
but
then
you
that-
can't even understand him this time around. It's like code.
You make it seem like he intended that.
That's pretty funny, actually. He's so
Doesn't
secretive.
matter who
It's
I
a
am.
secret.
No one knows what the fuck I'm saying.
All that matters is that you what?
Oh, did you
Oh,
see
yeah.
the when Rises came out? We're going 2 movies ahead now, but
Yes.
when the 10-minute IMAX thing,
I saw that.
everybody saw that here.
I saw that. Didn't
I
you?
had no idea what Bane was saying.
It was so bad. Yeah.
Well,
It was
right.
terrible.
It was
Yeah.
terrible sound design. Yeah.
Doesn't matter when
It's good they did that little preview because I think the whole internet exploded
Right.
again.
Yeah,
when
because
came
he
out.
would have sounded like that in the
They're
whole
like-
damn movie.
Yeah.
If they didn't do that.
I remember
Abe
walking out. It was
Simpson,
Mission
"Burn
Impossible or
it
something.
up."
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we walked out and we didn't talk about Mission Impossible. We talked about a Batman
How
thing.
bad the
We were
sound
like-
design was.
I remember saying to Jeremy Bowditch,
Yeah.
technically SuperHouse co-host, never on, but it was on the Black Panther episodes. He was like, I told him, I had no idea what he was saying. Anyway, let's get back to the begins. I'm sorry for that tangent.
But I mean, we're just mainly going through the persona of Batman, differences between the comics and the movie. So the distinction then will be the comic book bat suit with the traditional two-tone with the black bat versus the Nolan Begins suit, which is a little bit more rubber armor and all black, kind of like the Burton Schumacher movies.
I went first last time, so Wolfie.
It works quite well for the Nolan verse of Batman films. I think now post B versus S, was it called? Batman v
Versus
Superman.
Dawn of Justice.
And Justice League, we've seen how it's a little more fantastical, a little bit more suspension of disbelief put into the portrayal of these characters and stuff. And I always like the two-tone. I've been waiting for years to see a somewhat mix of like cloth outerwear and like the armor underneath that, and those kind of like ripped cloth battle damage.
That would be cool.
We've yet to
for
see
sure.
something like that because you have like the more tactical, the more realistic, but I've argued for a long time that things don't have to always be realistic to be believable, and hopefully we're heading into an age of
That's true.
who gives a fuck.
I think we certainly
true.
have. Given that Begins came out before we had movies with a talking raccoon in the Marvel stuff, I think we've
Everyone
moved on
loves
to,
it. And a
to
dancing
comic.
tree.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So this was before that time, but for me, yes, I prefer the classic because I'm usually like that with the comics purists, but I like the bat symbol being on the chest because for the reasons that I talked about, I like that. I
Hell
like
yeah.
the feeling that he is that you don't really see the armor, which is my issue with some of the.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's
You know
true.
what
That's
I mean?
true. Yeah.
Like otherwise, you see a guy in armor as opposed to there's this great comic book cover. I'll have to dig up the actual issue, but it's by Scott McDaniel, who just liked one of our posts on Instagram. By the
Oh
way,
shit.
so
Shout out.
Thank
reach
you,
out to us,
Scott.
Scott McDaniel. I'll talk to you later. But it's a picture of Batman, and he's just been shot, and the bat signal is like smoking, but you can see armor underneath.
Yeah,
that's
boy.
So the
That's
armor's
cool.
under.
That's cool. That's the way to do it.
cloth tunic.
Because
so,
what they don't
yeah.
show often is that Bruce is a master seamstress.
Yes, he sews a lot.
Seamster.
Or he makes Alfred do it, and then Alfred's like, God damn it, Master Bruce.
You sewed this too tight, Alfred.
I am voting for the comics on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer, comics.
Comics.
I was a little disappointed.
Slightly longer answer is
Yeah.
it does make sense for Nolan's interpretation.
Yeah.
But if we're doing ultimate, out of all versions ever, not, everything, yes, the comic book version with the armor under, definitely better and a little bit more color. Obviously, Batman is a much darker hero than most,
Right.
but, a little bit more color as well is always good.
Right. I don't think this movie would have been ruined if he looked like the BVS suit instead of what
Yeah,
we
that
got.
would have been
It would have
pretty
been.
cool.
It would have been cool to see, and it wouldn't have taken away from anything that's in the
Yeah.
actual movie. So that's another to the comics.
Nice.
All right, we're gonna move into a lot of different characters who you've seen because now Batman has already begun. We've kind of already seen the beginnings of different aspects and compare them to the comics. So now there's kind of going to be a little bit more on character stuff since there's not really a lot of other comics that are exactly like the Begins plot post him taking on the suit. You grooming him
How do you make his wings go?
like that.
Wolfie is playing around with this Batman toy for the audio podcast
Yep.
I
listeners.
can't help it.
So the next character to go into is Commissioner Loeb, who we definitely remember from the Aronofsky draft because he was the main villain.
Yes.
in that.
Loeb.
Can you do the Loeb smoking the cigar thing?
What does he say? What's the line? No,
He didn't
I
really
can't.
have a line. He was just like,
Oh no, I don't remember.
okay, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll cut that. Okay, in the comics, Loeb is, as well as in the Aronofsky draft, Loeb is thoroughly corrupt. Also really fat and greasy and just reeking of sleaziness. Blackmails Gordon, fully cognizant of the fact that he is just basically getting rich off of Falcone being able to do crime in the city.
Gordon takes over Loeb's job, obviously. And that's why
in-
GCPD or whatever is so fucking corrupt.
Well, Loeb actually leaves at the end of year 1 and is replaced by another commissioner named Grogan.
Grogan.
Not to be confused with Gordon. So you got Grogan versus Gordon, and there wasn't really a lot to do with Grogan, but they could have just had.
There's a bad photocopy over there at DC. Like, wait, what?
But in the Nolan movies, yes, like Gordon does take over from Loeb, but this is a very different Loeb. So this Loeb, they changed his race, so he's an African British actor named Colin McFarlane.
Oh yes,
and he's a fantastic voice. But
Yeah.
he plays a. It seems that Loeb is not corrupt. Or he's either not corrupt or he is corrupt, but we just don't know it.
And the story can't delve into that really.
Story
There's no time.
doesn't
He's just
really.
real cocky. What gets him is his hubris.
Well, I mean, it does seem like he is like on the up and up.
It's always that hubris.
Yeah. The damn
It'll get you every
hubris.
time.
Gordon's like, no, drink.
hubris.
He had a drinking problem as well. He couldn't, most guys
fleshed out
swish
that
it
character,
around
yeah.
and be like, Gordon, would you come smell this? But he didn't even do that. He's just like straight to the head. A lot of problems.
What are you
Well, I mean,
talking about over
Talking
there?
about the Dark Knight when Loeb got killed.
Yeah, you didn't watch.
Oh yes,
You didn't watch
You
that
don't watch
movie?
the Dark Knight?
4 times, 2 countries.
Yes.
Never
not
let
really-
it go.
He's not really shown to do anything legally outside of his jurisdiction. He is the one to announce that they caught Joe Chill. The next time we see him, he is the one with the newspaper being like, nobody brings vigilantes into my city. But like, does that mean that he hates the fact that Falcone was arrested because he's working for Falcone, or does he just not like vigilantes? We don't know. And then just a little bit of scenes here and there towards the end on that. So it's never really explained if Loeb is corrupt. Or if he's not corrupt, then he's just kind of inept, considering how fucking corrupt the rest of the police department is.
He's just a real
in this.
greasy dude.
Yes.
Greasy.
So we have 2 different Loebs here. We have the Loeb from the comics, who's very much an out-and-out villain, and police corruption is under the take with Falcone, and that kind of explains the corruption and everything. And then we have this other Loeb in Begins and The Dark Knight, who has a very minor role. His relationship to Gordon seems to be not very close as a friendship, but I guess close enough, or there was at least enough there for Gordon to be at his funeral in The Dark Knight. But we don't know that much about this Loeb. So, differences between the 2 Loebs. How do you think we did?
I hate them goddamn both. Comics
All right,
and
so draw.
0. We're getting 0 from you this time.
I just can't vote on that. They
It's
both
Andrew
suck.
versus me. They both suck as characters, or both suck?
Yeah, get him out of here.
Oh my god.
All right, Andrew.
I have no preference. Either way, I suppose.
I mean,
I'm
you
just
can't.
throwing in as
There's not
many
enough
different-
time. Well, I mean, you could always weave a
Loeb.
tale.
I love him.
Which one?
Just kidding.
Oh my god, you're still talking.
I can't help it.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Sorry, man. Loeb. What can you say about him? No, okay.
Nothing, because he's barely in it.
In this movie, I mean, what are you going to do? Take like 20 minutes to go into Loeb's character? I guess they could have written that in there, but
Written a
it's-
little bit. I mean,
I
it
want
depends.
the Loeb one
this
shot.
one's tough because I mean, it's just like no one just did, and Goria did whatever they could do with the screen time. It's fine. I mean, ultimately, I guess comics because there's just more you can do there.
Yeah, I'd say
You know?
comics he's more fleshed out, but also just I just like the idea that like the police commissioner starts out as corrupt and Gordon takes his job later.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
all the bullshit I imagine. Let's say this Loeb was corrupt, right? And it's
Yeah.
just as bad as the one in the year 1 comic. Imagine how sort of gratifying that is for Gordon in this continuity, who has been under Loeb's thumb for years and
Yeah,
years during
yeah.
the time that Bruce is gone,
Yeah.
and now he gets to take his job in the Dark Knight. So I kind of like that interpretation.
It also gives a reason for why GCPD is so corrupt, right?
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
why. So Gordon, it's like a fucking major regime change.
Yes, exactly.
At GCPD whenever he takes over, but still everybody's probably got his back, and also gives more reason for Batman or for Gordon to really only trust Batman for the most
Really,
part.
yeah, exactly.
Like all the other cops, I can't trust these motherfuckers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So, and I can't fire him either just yet.
Yeah.
So it's like Gordon's really like in a rock and a hard place, and
Yeah.
also gives him even more reason to put his trust in this mass vigilante dude, especially in the beginning. Doesn't really know him all that well,
Yeah, exactly.
because all these other dudes that surrounding him that are supposed to be enforcing the law, fucking not doing it.
Yeah.
So It's almost as if they thought this out, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, this is really good. It's good. It's good writing, I think.
All right, go into the comics then.
All right. Wow. All right.
Just saying a bunch of shit everybody already knows.
Steadily
Really coming
climbing.
up. All right, general tidbits. The Narrows. Where did the Narrows come from? Now, I originally thought the Narrows was a Nolan invention until I found out in the article in Batman Online I helped contributed to that it was not a Nolan invention. It comes from the 66 show.
Holy shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Gotham Narrows, first mentioned in an episode called The Duo Defy.
Wow.
Season 2, episode 6, episode 60. I'll have to look that up. I don't think that's right. There were a lot of episodes in season 2, or maybe episode 60 of the overall show. That might make more
Possibly
sense.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Later incorporated into the comics in 1978 in an issue where Batman confronted the third Clayface, Preston Payne, on the Gotham Narrows Bridge. So Narrows does have some precedent in the comics. But obviously, I'm not going to bring up a comparison between that Narrows and this one because it's just a location.
It sounds wicked cool to say
the Gotham Narrows.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good
Down
name.
in the Narrows.
For sure.
And all that climactic stuff happens there. Cool.
Yes.
Super cool.
Originally, I kind of missed the Narrows after Begins. They never came back.
Yeah.
That's
Especially
true.
because that was the most fucked up neighborhood at the end of Batman
Right.
Begins, and there
They
was
could've-
really a follow up of just like,
Yeah.
well, the
Zombies.
Narrows, it's just dead. The
could've
Narrows
really-
is lost.
It could have really been like the locations they were in
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises. It could have been
that.
just hiding out in the Narrows, the criminals, the tables have
Bringing
It makes
turned.
Bloodhaven look like Metropolis.
Yeah.
We haven't even seen Bloodhaven yet. Originally, there was a scene of Flash threatening Gordon's family. Similar to the stuff that I've described in year 1.
What, with a hot dog in his mouth? Get that guy out of here.
This is before he gets the hot dog.
Okay.
Outta here.
Well, they don't like falafel. And then Batman hangs Flash upside down from the rooftop to interrogate him. This is right out of the
This is Swear to Me?
Haunted Night. This is the Swear to Me. The line
This
Swear to Me
was
is from the comic.
when I
Really?
achieved a full
Erection.
bat boner.
Really?
When he says "swear to me," because it's like I swear to God, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about God.
Right, yeah.
Swear to me.
Yes.
Like that is like whoop, fucking the best.
Interesting.
I don't know. I had
Black
quite the
leather.
same reaction. I think I was just more. Well, here's the thing. I grew up with Keaton.
I mean,
I
I
grew
did
up
too.
with Kilmer, but just the fact that him yelling at this dude, I'm just like, I get it, interrogation tactic, but I just felt to me a
the
little
real
more
question is,
over
does
the top.
Flash actually swear to him?
No, he doesn't. He just yells as he goes through, and then he just brings him back up and just has him
Sounds cool.
say the
but
same thing.
Technically ineffective.
Technically, not
line.
actually. Yeah, he doesn't actually make him swear to Batman.
It's a year. It's also like you could chalk it up to him being younger and angrier as
Yeah.
well.
Ooh, if anything, he gets angrier over the course of the movies because his voice
That's
gets
true.
all
Well, see,
powerful.
And he's an icon.
That's a mistake of the character arc, but at this time they only had one movie to make.
Yeah, no, I know.
So
I'm
was
just
good.
saying it
Yeah.
wasn't the quite the.
badass.
It's a scene that I wish I could love as much as other people, but it just always kind of rubs me a little bit, almost unintentionally comedic.
It's too gruff.
It's too
because
over
he
the top
says
for me, yeah.
swear to me with a hard
Even
hard-
his lisp. It's
a hard
just-
T8.
Bale does have a slight speech
Swear to me.
impediment.
It's because he's got that Cockney thing going on. He's got to like hide it because stuff it down. You're being very droll.
It's
Alfred.
weird to hear his rant where he just flips in and out of American and English.
He's a
each time.
genius.
Yeah.
But I don't know how if that's just like that's his weird accent because of the fact that I think he has dual citizenship. Like he goes between his wife is American.
It's
I think,
exhausting.
So like
He's-
Keeping all
he's
these
method as
accents
fuck.
in order.
that too.
And
So
he did all the interviews in his American accent
Yeah.
Before
for
it begins, yeah.
kids or something.
yeah, he
They
didn't
were
want
gonna see it.
Americans to think
Yeah.
that.
That's what Tom Holland
Batman-
needs
yeah.
to do.
Too late now.
Get
I think.
Fancy schmancy talk out of here. Me like
well, he's in a
Spider
whole bunch of
guy.
He's a bunch of animated films just using his same Spider-Man voice. So I guess that's been working out for him. But
yeah.
let's see another character because there's a lot of Wayne Enterprises stuff in this movie as well. We talked about Lucius Fox, Mr. Earl, who's played by Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer was hired because the look and feel of the Narrows, at least, was inspired, of course, by Blade Runner, which is one of Nolan's favorite movies. And Rutger Hauer, of course, is famous for playing Roy Batty.
Tears in
that
the
one.
rain.
Yes.
Get that guy from Blade Runner on the phone.
The
Harrison
Batty
Ford?
guy. No, the other guy.
I heard
the guy
he
who
made-
called himself Batty.
Nolan made his crew, or at least part of his crew, watch Blade Runner in preparation for Batman.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You see a good movie for once, you
Yes.
sons of bitches.
So he is kind of similar to the Charles Palantine character we talked about in Gotham.
Yeah.
Not Gotham. The Bruce Wayne pilot, who is the CEO, is kind of the villain, but he's not quite that much of a villain. He's just more like looking at. He's kind of just a shrewd businessman who doesn't really care about the old regime type of thing. He's not really that much of a bad guy.
Right.
But sort of tied into the Wayne stuff is another character I realized we kind of skirted over because the movie skirted over, and that's Martha Wayne.
Martha!
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh my God.
So I'm bringing
Trigger
up Martha
warning.
Wayne
That
because
was the worst, man.
coming soon, or Batman vs Superman deep dive.
Trigger warning.
Snyder stands. Trigger warning of us making fun of that. But Martha in the movie has maybe 2 lines, and after she's dead, there's not really a lot of other mention of her other than the pearls. Because let me ask you guys this thing: Thomas Wayne, you know that what was his occupation?
Doctor,
Philanthropist.
of course.
Philanthropist, and potentially philanderer as well. Philanthropist. Runs Wayne Enterprises. Okay, what did Martha do?
She's
She's a housewife.
See, that's my point.
She's the first lady of Gotham.
In
She has
the
education.
Andrew Vachis novel, Batman: The Ultimate Evil, Martha was shown to have helped in charities as well as going up against child trafficking around the world. So she was the philanthropist side,
that's
and Thomas
interesting.
Wayne was the doctor sort of thing. If anything, in the past, and like as they expand the backstory, they gave her the maiden name Kane after Bob Kane. But
10 plus.
it is 10 plus. But they established that the Kane family was a big business family. So I always thought it made more sense for it in a way made more sense for the business stuff to actually come from Martha, and the philanthropy type of stuff to come from his father, Doctor,
Right.
type of thing.
Okay.
In which case, Wayne Enterprises would kind of have to have been started by Bruce himself, or a Wayne Kane merger thing that happened after they married, or something like that.
Or
But,
Thomas.
yeah, Thomas and Martha. But
There wasn't a grandfather figure that had something to do with that?
Yeah, I always thought Thomas Wayne inherited from his father.
Well, yeah, there's this whole thing of inherited, but in the movie, it's actually established that he started it.
Okay.
Oh,
I
really?
think so. That he started it, or that
Makes
it's run
sense.
by.
He made
previous
it. He
men.
made it big, and then
kind of a
became doctor.
conglomerate.
I might have to rewatch that scene again, but yeah, there's that scene in the train where Bruce is like, "Did you build this train, Dad?" He's like, "No. There's the Gotham Hub, and let me tell you everything about this company before I die."
Are we
Yeah,
meant
so-
to stand in bum piss?
Yes.
Daddy,
Welcome to downtown.
Daddy, will you clean up the city,
So,
please? Daddy?
I don't know if it's worth necessarily mentioning that and doing a Martha, and making competition about that, considering how little she was in it. But I do think it could have benefited from more of at least some mention of her after her death, for God's sake, other than the pearls.
Right.
Look at how
Yes.
sad he is.
He is showing the book to the camera.
Yes.
You need a mommy.
I don't know. Should we vote on this one? I mean, obviously, it's going to go to the comics if we do.
I could have done with some more Martha.
Yeah, I
let's
mean,
do
we're
it.
all gonna do comics, right?
We're gonna. Well, we
Yeah.
have to. Yeah.
Oh, steady,
Yes.
rising. We got a neck and neck battle here. Movies are stupid.
See, you don't know where this is gonna go. You guys thought that maybe Nolan had this in the
It's
can.
not like the book.
Turn it around.
By the way, Ben, I feel like whenever you see a new Batman movie, you have so many you're checking like every little point of it. Like when you see the Pattinson movie,
Yeah.
I feel like your head's gonna explode, man. Because now you've garnered so much information
That's what the man's been preparing for.
since 2005, because that was the last new one, right? So like you're.
What do you mean
God,
since 2005? The last
Batfleck,
last new
that's right.
Batman movie.
2000.
But I mean like a new series. Batfleck was, I guess, the last.
He's
new,
kind
newish
Batfleck
one.
was kind of the last one, but yeah. But I mean, I kind of had that with seeing some of the previous ones where we could only watch the movies in theaters, and I didn't like. This was obviously because of years and years of having watched this movie and remembering stuff.
Yeah.
But when I watched Joker, and then when I watched the Batman, I'm gonna have to remember this shit.
I feel like if we go see this movie, if we go see Pattinson, the Batman together, we walk out. I just imagine we walk out of the theater together, and you're just gonna be like, not that you liked it or didn't like it, but you're gonna be like you can't talk for a while because you're processing so much, so much.
Okay. All right. I'll take bets on that. We'll see what happens in 2021.
Oh man,
another year.
We're happening. Yeah, another year till it was
filming right now.
Yeah. So
Maybe it's London time too. London time.
It's kind of exciting too because this is kind of the new decade's Batman Begins.
Yeah.
We have another
Yeah.
young Batman.
The
We have another
countdown.
thing that takes place in the early years of it, and we don't know what the Batsuit looks like at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be released by the time that we do this.
I have a feeling it'll be this week. No, I have no idea, but it would be cool if it's tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you for adding those in, so we can just splice in whichever one turns
Yeah.
out to be right.
Next week, today.
Next month is when we see.
Ow! Peanut got me.
The
Peanut
next,
attacks.
but the bigger character for us to go into is the man himself, the one that you see right in the center of the camera if you're seeing the video, and that is the Scarecrow.
One of the best villains, in my opinion.
One of the best villains in the Batman lore, because I think thematically it works so well.
Yeah,
This is a movie about
definitely.
Batman facing his fears,
Fear.
but also just Batman uses fear, and Scarecrow uses that tool as well. And I think somebody pitched the idea of, like, they did a DC Black Joker movie. They should fucking do a horror movie with Scarecrow.
It
That'd be
writes
amazing.
itself, guys.
Yeah, come on. So Jonathan Crane first showed up in the comic called The Riddle of the Human Scarecrow, ironically. And it was World's Finest.
No Riddler
number
whatsoever
3.
in that.
Just
Riddler
a
was
riddle.
created after the Scarecrow, actually.
Whoa.
Holy fuck balls.
Scarecrow was created in 41. Riddler was 48, I think. So
Scarecrow came out just
Before.
2 years after Batman
came
was?
out 2 years after Batman, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Batman.
So Scarecrow showed up, and if you see, and we'll show you the picture of this, Jerry Robinson was the artist on the original Scarecrow design, and you see Jonathan Crane in the beginning, and he has the combed hair and the glasses and the suit. Like, he looks like it looks almost as if Cillian Murphy was based off of the first appearance.
Okay,
of,
that's cool.
of the Scarecrow.
That's
Because, like,
cool.
if you look at Jonathan Crane now in the comics, he's got like this moppy brown hair and this big nose, and they make him look like Ichabod Crane. 'cause
Yeah,
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
that's why he was picked on. But in the original comic, he actually looks a lot like Cillian Murphy,
Okay.
or an
all right.
older Cillian Murphy.
Dashing.
So maybe not dashing, but at least the glasses. and the
Darkly
design.
arousing.
British life.
Very dorky.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yes. The common backstory in this was he's always had this obsession with fear, and when he was first showed up in the 41 comic, it was that he was a professor at Gotham University and was so obsessed with fear he discharged a gun in class to try to make his students afraid. And started that
Okay.
experiment, and the university kicked him out, so he proceeded to kill the people at the university because he just couldn't handle it, apparently.
Sounds like real life.
I know, right?
Sadly
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's
They
actually
wanted
kind
to
of
put
topical.
that in.
This is the 1941
This is
storyline?
1941, yeah.
Wow. When they were writing this in 1941, they were like, this could
This
just
would
never
never
happen.
happen.
This is just
Yeah.
comic book stories for children.
And of course,
An evil so fantastical that
Cut to the 2000s, it's happening all the
especially
time.
considering that the Scarecrow, as I told you guys in the Shadow episode, he didn't have the fear gas originally. He just had a gun.
yeah, that
all you
scared the
need.
shit out of me.
So yeah, he is not in charge of Arkham Asylum like in the movie. He is just a university professor who gets fired. Sometimes they filled in the backstory a little more with updated comics where he was bullied as a kid, or made fun of, didn't have much luck with women. Again, other stuff that leads into people shooting people these days,
Right.
apparently. But
Right.
so Scarecrow, I guess, is a classic.
An incel type.
Yeah, I guess we never realized this. Scarecrow is basically the classic profile of the mass
Incel.
shooters.
Yeah.
Incel mass shooters, yeah. Maybe the Joker thing should have been about him. I don't know.
Have we
But-
blown your mind just now?
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like I knew that already. But yeah, there's no explanation for
It was in there somewhere.
Scarecrow's motivation is not really in this movie that much.
Right.
He works for Roz. Roz says that he's under the impression that they're going to hold the city for ransom, but it's not clear, like, does he like it because he wants to see the world, or does he see the city in fear for some sort of experiment thing? Does he just want money out of it? It's not really gone into, as opposed to
He just kind
remember,
of fulfills a device, and then
Yeah.
he's the sub boss.
right? Yeah, and remember we went
Power
over
player.
the Batman 5 script that was never made, the Dark Knight one, where that went deep into like flashbacks of his father and being bullied and why he was who he was,
Right.
and all the stuff that developed into the Scarecrow. And he actually had a Scarecrow costume; it wasn't just a burlap mask.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything. There was so much
Yeah.
stuff, and that in that script, Crane is also in charge of Arkham Asylum, and that's actually where that idea comes from.
That's the one with Scarecrow and Man-Bat.
Yeah,
That one's pretty cool.
That one's good.
That
yeah.
one's pretty cool.
So
Not as good as Aronofsky, but it was probably maybe second best.
In
my-
a perfect
my-
world,
Yeah.
2 hours would feel like 1 hour, and you could fit all that shit in there. In
Anyway.
a perfect world.
The
you
magic
mean more
of
Scarecrow
movie
stuff in
making.
Batman Begins?
I don't know what
Okay.
the fuck I'm saying.
Hi.
Crane also doesn't have his Scarecrow costume in this one. In the comics, it's usually he's got the hat and like a full-on costume. He leaves straws. He's got like the skull thing that he uses to disperse the fear gas.
Okay.
He has a scythe sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes he has a long coat. In the movie, he basically just has the mask.
Yeah.
And they do have the straight jacket, of course, at the very end. And I remember at the time, everyone's just like, Scarecrow has a costume. It's the straight jacket. It's going to always be Scarecrow in the mask and the straight jacket. That's his costume from now on when you see him in the movies. And then lo and behold, first 5 minutes of Dark Knight, he just shows up back in the suit again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, right.
didn't quite
Not
work
my
out that way.
Laundry day was yesterday, Batman.
And he didn't even have the fucking mask on in Rises. So whatever.
That was kind of, we'll get into this in the Dark Knight episode, but that
Yeah.
was sort of a rocky intro. Like after that heist scene,
Yes.
like not my diagnosis, and
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
like that's just like, okay, Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, we're being
He
good
had to
with
wrap
that.
it up. I mean,
We've been good with that heist shit and stuff. Like
Well, the Joker
I
stuff.
kill the limo driver or whatever,
Yeah,
the bus
the bus
driver.
driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Joker stuff throughout the whole movie, as we'll see when we revisit it, just completely overtakes all the Batman stuff in that one.
It really overrides it. It's just a stellar performance, but
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, so I feel like we know the verdict on this one, but movie Scarecrow, who's basically just the burlap mask and is helping to work with Ra's, versus the comic book Scarecrow.
Mainly a costume change, or you mean like the
He's
guy
it's
shooting
different
a gun?
costume, but also different costumes, but also motivations.
level
are explored more in
of
comics.
how interesting the character is.
Yeah,
depth.
comics for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just more
Yeah.
fleshed out
I
in
think
general.
so too.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
had more time to. I mean, I guess they could have put that in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
background of the movie
Yeah.
somehow, but
If you had a
Yeah.
film where it was just Batman versus a singular villain and could wrap like a nice creepy dark tale
Right.
around the Scarecrow, I think it would be worth eventually having that movie, whether it be animated or something, because he is such an interesting character. But for sake of Nolan's
Yeah.
thing, he really just fulfilled kind of like
He fulfills his purpose.
his purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this. So it goes to the comics.
Yeah, just more interesting.
Got it. All right. This is.
I have a
interesting.
question about motive in general,
Sure,
though, for
yeah, yeah.
Scarecrow.
Yeah.
So, when he uses fear toxin on people, it's essentially a control thing. He wants
it's
to,
a
he wants to
control-
get something out of them, or
He wants the power over them.
because he
'Cause
feels
he's been-
weak.
He's
Usually,
been powerless for so long,
Gotcha.
and other people made him afraid. He's going to inflict fear on them, which Batman, of course, can relate to because he's
It's
inflicted fear on the
delicious.
criminals who made him feel.
Have you ever
Right.
tasted fear? It's delicious.
literally? Okay.
I can taste yours right now.
Is this your audition for
weird
Scarecrow?
me out, bro.
Is this the line in the Matt Reeves Scarecrow?
I don't know how to respond.
Fear is delicious.
So some Scarecrow stuff that happens in the movie that is more general tidbit stuff, because we're going back and forth between competition and just stuff that is kind of cool trivia facts.
Wait, I have one more side tangent question.
Yes. What's going on?
I love
Is
trivia facts.
Scarecrow like a top tier villain for you personally?
He could be more. It's just I feel
He has
tired.
so much potential.
Feels like a lot of untapped potential, because I feel like a majority of Scarecrow stories are Scarecrow is using his fear toxin on people. Batman goes to confront him. Scarecrow sprays him with fear gas. Batman sees his parents die again. Batman devises an antidote. Batman tracks down Scarecrow, who does not have any of the fighting skill to take on Batman whatsoever.
Yeah.
And Batman exposes him to his own fear gas. And then Crane gets locked up in Arkham, and that's the end of the story.
Bad trip.
That is pretty much every Scarecrow story out there. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but you could do other things with this guy that could be more interesting. I don't know, something that is not the same fucking
An
pattern.
episode just on Scarecrow coming up a year from now.
What he does bring to the table is just this function of being a weapon himself, or his knowledge
Right,
of this
yeah.
fear toxin and how to utilize that. So, like, to the
Yeah.
highest bidder seems to make like a lot of sense to
It's
me.
the smarter villain that's
Yeah.
not a physical
Right,
threat.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
think the movie he
you want some
fulfills...
scared people?
Yeah. He fulfills his purpose. He's not the main one, because Ra's is the main one, but
Yeah.
it would kind of be weird to have the fear gas without Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And if Cillian Murphy's character was just some random mad scientist dude, so like
Oh,
I
yeah,
get
would
it.
not make sense.
Yeah, I'd get it. People would be like, "Why wasn't he just the fucking Scarecrow?" You know,
Right.
So you might as well just throw him in that. Scarecrow hides the chemicals inside a shipment of stuffed toys in the movie, which is
Yeah.
from Dark Victory by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and it's also in The Long Halloween, where I mean, I have it here. Batman gets exposed to fear toxin during his first battle with Scarecrow and sees the night where his parents were killed. But, I mean, come on. That's like every Scarecrow story, so I don't know if I can really equate that to the Long Halloween. But the fact that Batman does tend to lose in his first encounter of Scarecrow is very true to various versions of his encounters with the character. And, of course, because otherwise he wouldn't be such a big villain. Right. So, literally what happens is that when he and Robin try to stop him in the very first Scarecrow story, because Scarecrow just shot a businessman. So Scarecrow pistol whips Batman and then throws a trash can at Robin, and then he gets away. That's how he beats them in the comics.
Okay.
In the updated version, it's a little bit more similar to the one in the movie where Batman visits Crane's apartment, suspecting him to be behind these mysterious deaths where, Crane was a bit more of a covert killer.
Okay.
In the comics, where his fear gas would cause his victims, because he was targeting old professor dudes, so he would cause them to have heart attacks.
Weaklings.
Yeah, and so Batman
Academics.
was like, there's no way that all of these academics are now dying of heart attacks with these weird like straw things, right? There's something going on, and so he narrowed it down to Crane, who had been recently fired, goes to the apartment, and then he
It's
gets
as
sprayed.
fishy as Kevin Spacey's accusers, but that's another story.
The Clinton body count, anyway.
I think we're getting way off. Okay. And Crane has a bomb in his apartment, and Batman escapes, but he has been sprayed by the fear gas, and he escapes from a fire. So very similar to the one in the movie. Only difference is that Crane isn't actually there. It's just
Are you a member of the fire brigade?
Comes later. We'll get to that part. When Rachel is exposed to Scarecrow's fear gas, she hallucinates a bunch of maggots. She hallucinates a whole bunch of stuff that we see in the Haunted Night comic. That was specifically the one that's a Scarecrow edition where a bunch of exposed policemen see the same exact visions on Scarecrow. So it's likely that it was taken from there. What's also taken from there is the line where Scarecrow says, quote, "Dr. Crane isn't here right now, but if you'd like to make an appointment."
Oh, yeah.
Except Scarecrow says that in the comic. In the movie, he says it because he's now been dosed with the fear gas.
Right.
And now he's
Right.
messed up.
Yeah.
That's how I feel every day.
Well, you smoke a lot of weed.
Weed is fear gas, everybody. And then
Munchy
after he
gas.
takes out Crane, Batman is sort of trapped in Arkham, and the SWAT team goes in, and Batman has to use the bats as backup for that. Now, of course, this is a familiar scene because we saw that in the Year One comic as well as the Aronofsky script, except that was in an abandoned tenement building
Okay.
with a bunch of homeless people that got set on fire when Commissioner Loeb dropped a fucking bomb on it.
Batman goes, cuckoo, cuckoo, and they all fly through the window. Different
this
animal.
Is more, yes, but this is a more PG-13 version. There are no homeless people. There is no bomb that sets them on fire. It's all in Arkham Asylum,
right.
and he basically uses the bats to distract the SWAT team so that he can get Rachel out of there.
Rachel!
This is when he says, back up.
Yeah, back up. So we now get into
That shit was awesome.
we get into
Second Bat Boner was at that scene.
The Batmobile.
we get into the Batmobile in this one. So the Batmobile, let's go a little bit into the history of the Batmobile. It was first called that in Detective Comics number 48. It was a red car. Mm-hmm. And you know the Spirit of Ecstasy with that little ornament on the front, the Rolls Royce. It was basically like that, but with a bat instead. And that was the Batmobile.
Cool.
And
Classy.
it was his high-speed auto was this red car. And, like, to be fair, it's stealthy.
Right.
I mean, maybe not the bat part, but still, like, it's stealthy in the fact that, like, it looks like a regular car.
Look at this rich asshole driving through our neighborhood. Oh, God, he's beating the shit out of people. Get out of here.
Like, when you first see Batman driving around in Detective Comics number 27, it's just, you just blend in.
Right.
With the car. But then, as he got more and more popular, they created, like, let's do toys out
A
of
car
him.
he couldn't take out of the garage. No,
Yeah, it's a car he can't take out of the garage, but everyone will know it's him. And that was the original Batmobile. So, a more traditional one was introduced in Batman number 5. And obviously, we have the Nolan-verse version of the Batmobile that's very different from that. So
when you first saw this, what did you think?
I was like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is
What the
that?
fuck is that?
Yeah.
Having grown up with the animated series and the
Tim Burton
stuff, but I also got, like, what was exciting about Begins was the fact that if your main exposure was the Burton Schumacher stuff, this was definitely going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this was one of the first evidences of that was seeing this and being like, okay, this is not like what you saw before.
I could always I liked the action scenes more with the Tumbler.
Yeah.
But I could in my heart I could never fully accept it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it jumps, Andrew.
yeah.
It jumps real high.
It's just not in my heart. It's just not what I want.
Here's what's interesting, though. If you see some people have read into this. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but some people claim that this is actually the shape of a bat with its wings forward. You have the head here with the ears and the head, and these are the two wings bringing it forward with the flaps of the wings in the back.
This could have been done with a less bulky car, though.
Could have been done a little better, yes.
But I mean, it's cool.
I see it.
Yes.
You see it?
He's holding it up to the
This
camera.
is not the first tank-like Batmobile. However, in the comics, there was a comic book in 1956 called Detective Comics number 236. It was called The New Model Batman, where Batman realized the criminals were onto his stuff, so he decided to amp up his vehicles,
Upgrade.
and one of his vehicles was on the front cover, and that was a Bat tank.
Nice.
Okay.
It was called, what was it called? It was
The
called the Bat
Tumbler.
Track. No, it was called the Bat Track.
Shoot giant batarangs out of it.
That way they couldn't do any wheels. Yeah.
Be awesome.
The
No,
criminals couldn't take out-
AK-47s come out of it, of course.
And a very young Michael Uslan, future producer of the Batman movies, said that he will always remember this cover, and it made a distinct impression on him. So I don't know if
Looking it
that necessarily led to the reason why they went with this. I have a feeling a lot of it was Nolan just being like, well, for practicality's sake, he needs to have a tank. But, you know.
Right.
The
It's got to
design was
jump
also-
buildings.
Yeah, which was also in the Tom Mankiewicz draft, where the Batmobile jumped the rooftops, as well as
Right.
in the Peter David's Batman Forever novelization.
For sure, yes. True bard.
The more famous tank Batmobile was in The Dark Knight Returns, where he just just has this huge ass tank that he uses to go up against the mutant gang later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's likely
It's
those
very
two at least were the inspiration for this one. That's kind of more in between.
When they said they wanted to be like a mix of like a Formula One and a tank or something like that, like a Nolan said something about how he wanted it to be like essentially like the mix of a tank and a Lamborghini or something like that.
Something like that
To preserve
It
the kind of
feels like because it's not
sharpness.
quite a tank, but it's not obviously not quite a car either, as you can see in this. So when it comes to comparisons with the comics in terms of the ability to leap short distances, that actually is in the Batmobile of 1950, which is from 1950, but Detective Comics number 156, that is a Batmobile that shows they can leap distances across a bridge, which is exactly what they say this was originally made for at
Right.
later prices. So for me personally, like Andrew, I prefer the more traditional Batmobiles. I like something with a more bat-like motif on it. Also, I realized that it might not fit the so-called, realistic universe that we're in. However, because of all the talk about I must become a symbol and have the bat stuff, it would fit even more. And the fact that this Batmobile crashes through so many things and so many buildings that I just yearn for a Batmobile one day. Please give this to me, Matt Reeves. That has the bat battering ram in the front. I realize people think it's comic booky, but I think it's fucking badass, and the director should have that because you should show that you have an intimidating car. It's fucking Batman coming after you, and the first thing you see is that battering ram coming to crash in your fucking car.
Surprise, motherfuckers!
Surprise, motherfucker! But that's my preference. But yeah, it's difficult to compare this to
there's
do
been
a whole
so
movie
many iterations.
there's so many different versions of
Yeah.
it. So I don't know if it's worth doing one unless we want to do one versus the traditional Batmobile. But I think we already sort of
Battering
voiced
ram
it there.
versus Tumbler.
The battering ram versus the Tumbler, I guess. Yeah.
I'm a Tumblr guy.
You're a Tumbler guy with
I
this?
quite like the Tumblr. Yeah,
Do you?
I think it's good.
Andrew's
Man,
on you. You're
don't.
the one.
I'm the tiebreaker.
I
on
wanna
this
hug
one.
You
it.
got a tiebreaker on this one.
The thing is, it would be so easy if it was Burton versus the Tumbler. Fuck.
I would pick the Tumblr. I like the original quite, but
Yeah.
this one actually jumps in real life.
God, I might have
Well,
to
yeah,
go
because it's a
Tumbler
movie.
for this one.
It's a live-action movie. The
Ben, I
comics
might,
didn't make it.
I might have to go against you on this one, Ben. But it's a tough call.
Traitors, you're all traitors.
It's a tough call for me. This is the toughest one so far for me.
Collectible traders. Just kidding.
Not those type of traitors.
Yeah,
All right, you're siding with Wolfie.
yeah. I don't know. I've never.
Me
I
too,
don't know.
Andrew.
The bat, the bat on the front, like the battering ram,
Yeah.
like.
I'm not necessarily
I'm interested in
saying
seeing that for a
with some
movie, but
version of
I've
it,
never
yeah.
been the biggest fan. Like to me, it should be like as sleek as possible, and not really a battering ram. Just like get in and out quick, and
True.
maybe you just need a bat cycle at that point. I guess I don't know.
I've always felt that in his first year, Batman probably did something closer to what was in the original comic, where he had a more covert car.
Yeah,
to just
covert
get
shit.
around. And then when he became more and more of a figure with these more outlandish
Yeah.
villains that required him to actually show himself, that's when the Batmobile debuted.
Do a humongous ass smoke bomb and then do an MP blast so they can't follow you and get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? That's how I invent.
Of course, you could also just have him do the Batcopter, and he just swoops down.
Jetpacks.
Something.
As the thing go, and he doesn't have to worry about taking this thing through rush hour traffic. Because if you think about it, none of these car chase scenes in movies make any sense if you've actually been in any sort of big city like Los Angeles.
It
And
would
tried
have
to
to
drive.
do with the
Yeah.
Batman planning thing where he knows exactly where there's no traffic.
Side streets. Don't worry, I know a
I
shortcut.
know the great side streets.
Yeah.
And the thing is, how does he drive and get to the Arkham Asylum with this thing without anybody noticing it?
Don't worry about it, man.
It's
In this realistic
really
world
black.
we're talking about, does he just jump from here to Wayne Manor? Is there some
It's
sort of secret
really
tunnel
dark.
thing that he got to? Like, I'm just like, nobody saw this thing heading to Arkham Asylum. Something that is basically just the Wayne Enterprises prototype.
Realistically,
tank
Don't
with-
worry your pretty little head
with
about
some
that,
black
Ben.
paint.
realistically, he would have like a Bat Zeppelin or something really
Zeppelin.
quiet.
but huge, really
Yeah.
quiet, just humongous.
The turtle blimp, bro.
Huge zip line. I don't know.
All right, well, that one goes
That
to
zip line.
that one goes to the movie.
Yeah.
Traitors. We had a gag after Batman came back with Rachel in the cave where he goes to Alfred and has that conversation with Alfred, right? We were originally going to just see it from the back of Bruce's head facing Alfred.
Okay.
And then when Bruce was about to go to his birthday party, Alfred's like, "But sir," and he points to the mirror, and we see that the black makeup is still on
Oh, right.
Bruce's
That's
face.
funny.
Okay.
That'd have been a little too much.
It's a little.
for-
It seems
for
to be out
me,
of place
yeah.
in the current.
and then cut. And he's all dashing again.
So when
That
Bruce
was
returns,
a really weird choice.
yeah, when Bruce goes to the party, then that's when we meet the real Ra's al Ghul, who's been Ducard the whole time.
Ra's al Ghul.
Or Ra's al Ghul. But yes, this is actually very similar to both Ducard and
Duker.
Ducard.
Duker.
Ducard. We got
Ducard of Hazzard.
Of Hazard. It's very similar to Ducard coming to visit Bruce in Blind Justice, as well as the fact that Ra's first showed up in general within Bruce's domain inside the Batcave in his very first appearance.
In his man cave.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't touch my drums.
Yes. And of course, Ra's has already deduced that Batman and Bruce are one and the same, as he always has done, because in the very first appearance.
And then they
that's who he was.
kiss.
Exactly. So when we get back from the break, we will go into a deeper dive of movie Ra's versus comic book Ra's. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Andrew. I just wanted to tell you about our friend Israel's retro gaming shop, RetroCo. If you go to retro-ko.com, you'll be able to see all of his retro gaming goodies. If you wanted to get that Sega Saturn hidden gem from back in the day, or if you wanted to get the Famicom disk system that you never got as a kid, or any other type of retro game that you were into, or import game, please go to retroco.com. That's retro-ko.com. And if you use the SuperHouse code Johnson's Ballsack, you'll be able to get a little bit of a discount at checkout. So please, once again, if you could just go to retroco.com. You can also go to facebook.com/retroco with no hyphen. That's RETROKO. You'll be able to find him on Facebook as well. If you were looking for that PlayStation import game that you never got, if you were looking for that Mega Drive game that you never got, or any other kind of retro game, any import game, it could even be European, Israel also curates bundles at RetroCo, and he'll curate that bundle just for you. So please, go check him out. If you put in the code Johnson's Ballsack at checkout, you'll receive a SuperHouse discount.
Yes.
All right, we're back, and as I promised, we are going to cover Ra's al Ghul, the movie version versus the comic book version. So we got a lot of different things here, but this is our last huge character deep dive. So sit tight.
Yeah.
So we got the costume. First off, the costume of Ra's al Ghul in the comics. He usually has these green ceremonial robes on him, very distinct. Sometimes he's got that Dracula type collar pulled up.
Some mean chops.
Yes. We'll get into the actual appearance a little bit later,
Race-like.
face-wise, but in the movie, of course, he's mostly seen in business suits, or sometimes he's in the League of Assassins uniform, and then at the end, he's kind of back into like this black suit or whatever. Sort of not quite how he looks like in the comics, but a more Nolanized, realistic version.
They
of
give
it.
him a nice little goatee.
Yeah, but it's not quite a goatee that is as. It's not like the Roz goatee, which is basically just
Point.
the hair points right here.
Yeah,
right?
right, yeah,
He actually
yeah.
has more like
I've lost my
realistic
razor.
goatee. Yeah. So the idea of Roz having a decoy actually comes from the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul.
Okay.
When Batman shows up to rescue, quote unquote, rescue Robin and Talia, he meets sort of the head of the Brotherhood of the Demon. Remember, that was the name of his organization.
Yeah, it
first.
couldn't
And
be League of Assassins.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And it's this man in a mask, and Batman takes the mask off, and it's Ubu.
Okay.
So Ubu has kind of filled in, Ubu being Ra's al Ghul's bodyguard. for
Ubu
those not in the
means gotcha.
so, but Ubu is not not in the movies and hasn't really been in any version of the Ra's al Ghul adaptation. Poor guy, but he is the bodyguard of Ra's al Ghul. Typically, this bald guy with a lot of skill. And at one point in the comics, Bane took on the role of Ubu.
Really?
Which is why in the movie they decided to kind of mix that in and make him tied into the League
Skillful
of Shadows.
retconning.
Yes. So Ubu isn't really in the movie, but you could say Ken Watanabe is a version of Ubu because of the whole decoy thing and the fact he's also bald. Ken Watanabe's character also kind of looks like, as I said in part one, like the Sensei and Master Kurigi, who's the guy who fought,
He's a
who
mashup.
trained Batman. Yeah.
It's an amalgamation of
Yeah.
these archetypes.
Of the bat.
Yeah, so the Sensei is the head of the League of Assassins sometimes, or is in competition with Ra's al Ghul, being the head of the League of Assassins. In certain versions, he's related to Ra's. So according to Neil Adams, the Sensei is Ra's al Ghul's son.
Okay.
Do as I will.
According to Grant Morrison, Grant Morrison's version is even wilder, considering the fact that the Sensei is usually looks like he's Japanese, and Ra's looks like he's Arabic. But in Grant Morrison's version, the Sensei is Ra's al Ghul's father.
It's getting complicated.
Yeah, I know, right? But let's go into race then.
And
So a
the
lot of
mother is
people-
unknown.
Yes.
No, just kidding.
Let's go into race. Now, this is going to be a bit of a hot topic because of the fact that we have a character named Ra's al Ghul, and he's played by the very white and very Irish Liam Neeson in this movie.
And recently coming out as racist.
As wanting to
some
beat
degree?
up black
Really?
people.
Oh,
yeah.
Because
Right.
his friend was his friend was raped.
That's right. I read that.
Anyway, we're going to get into the fact
Kill your
that,
idols.
Originally, and this was brought up before, the idea was for Ra's to not be tied into any race at all. So Neil Adams
Yeah,
described
okay.
him as a figure of indeterminate ethnic origin, a citizen of many cultures. He said, quote,
Ambiguous.
I created a face not tied to any race at all. It had to have evidence of a great many things having happened. A face that showed the man had an awareness of his own difference at an early age. Roz's face had to convey the feeling that he lived an extraordinary life long before his features were ever committed to paper. So, given that description, I'd say that Liam Neeson, if you had to cast a white dude at the time in 2005, was a good fit. However,
Yeah, he was good, I thought.
co-creator Denny O'Neil finally revealed the origin of Ra's al Ghul, revealing that he became Ra's when he was a doctor in ancient Egypt. So that then kind of solidified that, yes, he is Egyptian or Arabic at some point.
That's what I always thought. Raj, from the
That's true.
beginning.
Yes.
I
But
always thought it was just some name he chose for himself. Like,
right, yeah.
You know what I
Well, he
mean?
was a physician. I mean, the thing is, I was planning to save the origin of Ra's for the Dark Knight Rises because they go into their own version of the origin.
Okay.
But long story short, he was a physician in Egypt and discovered the Lazarus Pit.
yeah, right.
Type of thing. So obviously they didn't go with that in the
Like
Nolan
an
movies.
Egyptologist as well, like a guy that just knows all that kind of shit.
No.
Ancient Egypt.
He lived in ancient Egypt.
Oh
He
yeah,
wasn't
I
an
gotcha.
Egyptologist.
Oh,
He was
I
helping
gotcha.
the fucking pharaoh. And
I
shit.
gotcha.
Like, he was
and
the
Lazarus because he's lasted that long.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was what's going on. So Liam Neeson was cast, but he was not the first choice. Apparently,
Okay.
the first guy that they went to for this was Guy Pearce from Memento.
Yeah, where's he been, by the way?
He was fantastic as Scrooge in the latest Christmas Carol.
Oh, right.
That was
Oh, shit.
That was
Yeah.
my.
He is awesome. He has
my
peeked
favorite,
up in
yeah.
a few things. I have to
Yeah,
watch
yeah. He
The Time
he's
Machine,
great.
right?
Yeah, but that's like
that. Back in the
worst.
day,
Yeah.
he was in the Hurt
I remember
Locker
liking
for a
that when I
bit.
first saw it.
He was,
though.
yeah.
he was a big he was a main part of like the
He was the Big Bang in the
marketing. Yeah.
He was the Big Bang in the
Based in
beginning.
the marketing for. I remember his face was like prominent, and then he like it's like shocking 'cause
Surprise!
he dies, and then you go with who is it? Jeremy Renner. Or
Jeremy
something?
Renner, yeah. Who at
Wasn't
the time
he was a
unknown.
villain in Iron Man or something?
Oh,
Iron Man
right.
3,
He was
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
the Mandarin. Some
Oh,
kind
that's
of
right,
New
yeah.
master.
So that's what I'm getting
Yeah.
to. Pierce was offered. He said, "quote I did talk to him as in Chris Nolan, about one of the characters, sort of vaguely, but I think those rumors that I'd be involved had started before that anyway. It was the Liam Neeson character, but I was too young, considering the fact that he was maybe, Neeson is old enough to be Christian Bale's dad, as opposed to Pierce is probably closer to being like Christian Bale's brother.
Yeah.
Pierce would later go on to play Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3, who seemed to be working for the Mandarin, but it turned out that the Mandarin we thought, who was played by Ben Kingsley, was a decoy, and the real Mandarin was Aldrich
just ripped
Killian.
off Batman Begins.
So Guy Pearce got to play that role anyway.
Yeah.
That's true. That's weird.
So
Suavier.
with Guy Pearce not working out because he was too young, Nolan asked his second choice to play the role, and that was Gary Oldman.
Okay.
Nolan
Chris
asked-
Cooper. No,
That would have been kind of cool.
Nolan asked
actually.
Gary Oldman before he cast him as Gordon.
Yeah.
Because he originally had that in mind.
Yeah, that would have been good.
But
Yeah, it would have been pretty cool.
it was sort of, I think, he realized that what's more interesting, Gary Oldman playing a villain again after The Professional and The Fifth Element and probably a bunch of other stuff I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Or him playing Commissioner Gordon. So he got to be Gordon, and Liam Neeson got to be Ra's al Ghul, which I think is probably a good casting, considering like Oldman's a great villain, but he's not. I wouldn't consider him at all to be a physical threat. Like Neeson, you can see him being the guy who trained Batman. You can see him being
He's a big
his
dude.
ass.
He's a badass.
As opposed to Oldman, maybe during the Professional time, the Fifth Element time, he could have pulled it off. But back in the Begins time, I'm just like, I can't really see you holding just
slap
taking,
fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think they went the right choice there. Next is the
Take that, Bruce.
Yeah, the next is the look of Ra's al Ghul. So the comic book version has very different. He has these graying temples, he has black hair, and the biggest thing, he has no eyebrows. The Ra's al Ghul in the comic, if you take a look at him, he has
Sometimes
no
it
eyebrows.
do be
Never
that way.
draw it ever.
Neil Adams, co-creator, said, I wanted to take the fingers of the artists who draw eyebrows on Ra's al Ghul. I want to take their fingers and break them when they come to the eyebrows.
Jeez.
No eyebrows.
Really?
Yes.
He's just gonna be like this. He's just gonna be like,
He's supposed to look more demonic, apparently.
what do you mean? I look angry and feel angry.
Raz's MO is slightly different. In the comics, he's out for genocide to basically kill everybody so that he can remake the world in his own image. This one was slightly different. It was like the League of Shadows exists to create checks and balances, and if any city gets too big or civilization gets too big, he like destroys it.
It got into this kind of conspiracy theory territory with this plot line. Because it's like, we were the ones who sacked Rome. We were the one, like shit like that.
boarded
like
ships of plague rats.
Yeah. Like
the
they've controlled
Yeah.
civilization and the course.
They're the Illuminati, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like Illuminati is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, which was that in the comics ever? Or was that a Nolan
Not
Goyer thing?
really. That was more of a Nolan Goyer thing, especially the tidbit about we started the Depression that created Joe Chills in the first place, where they were all poor and desperate.
Right.
So, like, I guess that was another way to tie Ra's into Batman's origin further. Frankly, I didn't think it was really that necessary for them to do that, because it's like one scene and they never really cover that again.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's what they chose to do. Other Ra's stuff. There's no Lazarus Pit or immortality in the entire trilogy. In 2005, I always thought there was a possibility, like maybe it'll veer more into comic book territory, and they'll dump Liam Neeson in a Lazarus Pit in like Batman 4 or
I am
something.
immortal.
But they didn't do
You
that.
did not get your wish, Ben.
No, and for whatever reason, the movie, there was a misconception that Ken Watanabe was the real Ra's al Ghul, and it was a title that got passed down to Liam Neeson if you read the movie differently. And for whatever, the live action versions decided, hey, let's incorporate some version of that. So the Arrow version of Ra's al Ghul is a title that's being passed down from one guy to the next. And
Yeah,
then
I could see that.
Gotham's a similar thing, where it was like the Ra's al Ghul we know was given his immortality or the Lazarus Pit by his quote unquote predecessor.
What is it? Head of the Demon? What is
He's
it?
the head of the demon. But
Yeah, so that sounds like a title name, not an
well,
actual
that's
name.
what all the live action versions say. But in the comics, that is his like he's
That's
the
his
guy. He's the
actual name.
originator. And
Okay.
I'm just like, why did you have to make it more complicated? Like make him the actual guy? Because I feel like it's more threatening if it is the guy, the originator, the guy who's been pulling the strings for years type of thing.
Yeah.
There's a great line that the sensei says, but it's applicable to Roz, where he's fighting Batman. He's like, oh, you trained for decades? I've had centuries.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, fuck. Like,
Right.
You don't
It's like,
stand a
well, I'm
chance.
done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe I'll dress up as a fucking businessman and get to work.
Ra's al Ghul's nickname of Batman is usually Detective.
Okay.
As noted in the animated series and the comics
That's
countless
cool,
times.
yeah.
Not in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, there wasn't really a lot of exploration
Detecting.
into being. There's not a lot of detecting in the movie in general
Yeah.
for him to call him that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a lot of sword fighting between him and Ducard/Roz, and that leads into a lot of the duels that they had in the past. What's cool is that the novelization, which is what I have here, by Denny O'Neil, has a lot more fleshed out stuff on Ra's al Ghul.
Okay.
Has stuff supposedly from his journal where he's like, this young people of mine is promising. Perhaps I will introduce him to Talia and things
Oh,
that are
shit.
very much more tied
Oh
into it.
shit! We know what happens after
Yeah.
the dead boy.
Yeah, and then there's another chapter where Bruce, that's not based on any part in the script, where Bruce goes to a library and
My
steals stuff.
word.
Yeah, he steals a manuscript to find out more about Ra's al Ghul, like who did I learn stuff from, and then at the end there's like an epilogue where Bruce Wayne takes the uniform that he used to have for the League of Shadows, and it's got the
Okay.
blood of Ducard on it because he saved him,
Okay.
or blood of Ra's al Ghul, and he goes to the family plot where Thomas Wayne's grave is, and he digs a hole next to that,
Okay.
and he puts the uniform in there, and it's like, this is to honor, almost like my second father.
Okay.
So, the man that
Thanks for teaching me to walk
did.
on ice quietly.
Even though like we fought and I let you die, but like you were like a second fops for me.
Every time I mind my
move over,
footing,
Pop.
it is because of him.
Yes. So that's a lot on the comic book Ra's, and we have the movie Ra's. So I got to throw this out there. Given all these differences, who do you prefer more?
Well, it's
It's a little different because of the
like-
fact we've had a lot of
Yeah.
issues.
it's
of Ra's versus
always
the movie.
not fair because
Yes.
the comics have so much time. But I mean, yeah, comics if we're comparing, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I prefer the fantastical version, the more traditional version.
Yeah.
Although in the movies, they did a nice little finesse of getting the character, making him pivotal,
Yeah.
making him mean something to Bruce, and
Absolutely.
and it was a good way to set up the training and everything and how he becomes Batman. So for these films, obviously it works really well, and they did a good job of doing that. But the Lazarus Pit, that was like the animated series is like, there's a lot of like interesting spooky. You just anytime you hear the name Ra's al Ghul, you're just immediately drawn to those like really captivating images of like the ancient Egypt mysticism kind of bleeding into this modern day Gotham, which you don't get a whole lot of. I did think in Dark Knight Rises that the pit that they crawl out of was some way could be metaphorically
It's like a metaphorical
kind of
version of the pit.
interpreted as that, which was kind of cool.
It's not quite what I had in mind
Right.
in
It's
2005.
very subdued.
When I was like, well, he let him die on the train, but maybe he could come back in Lazarus Pit.
Yeah.
Then we would meet Talia, and we'd be in like the Middle East, and we can do more exploration on this stuff, and we can see the Lazarus Pit and get confirmation about the immortality. And maybe his Ubu could be Bane, and that's how you bring Bane into this. So they kind of did that in Rises, but not quite the way that I had wanted.
He was Poison Ivy's Ubu and Batman and Robin.
Yes, very much.
I wish I had me a Ubu.
So Ra's al Ghul's plan, obviously there's a lot of influences on the burning of Wayne Manor, but most likely it was a combination of Batman Bride of the Demon, Ra's and the League of Shadows, or the League of Assassins attack Batman in the Batcave, as well as the burning down of Wayne Manor, where Alfred just kind of blows it up at the end of The Dark Knight Returns. Let's see. Ra's was behind a mass breakout at Arkham, though, in an issue called Resurrection Night. That was Batman number 400. Here it was to spread chaos, but in the comics it was to prove to Batman that you need my help. You need the League of Assassins in order to be rid of this evil. Oh, hi.
We have a visitor of a cat.
Oh, hi.
Okay, so this is Honey, our new cat.
Oh,
and he is
really?
I thought you were Peanut.
no.
Oh.
We have two orange cats. All
Honey
right.
Bunny.
We planned that.
I feel like Kevin Smith always going Shacky, Shacky, in his podcast.
Oh, that was weird. They're like clones.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
know, right? So Ra's al Ghul's plan is to unleash a poison gas upon people, and that's very similar to Batman Annual number 8, The Messiah, the Crimson Sun, where Ra's planned to use a light beam to trigger a specific poison in the water supply. If it sounds any familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And the poison was harmless on its own, but if you drank it, then by the time the beam hit you, you would disintegrate.
Cool.
Okay.
So that would be his way to wipe out all of humanity. Here's another thing: the fear toxin appearance. The very first time a fear toxin showed up in the Batman comics was not with Scarecrow. The very first time, that a fear toxin showed up in the Batman comics, it was not with Scarecrow. It was with Professor Hugo Strange. It was Detective Comics number 46. Within maybe the first couple years of Batman's debut was this fear toxin plan, where lo and behold, they used this fear dust to try to spread it into the water supply and at this train station, and Batman and Robin try to stop them, and you see the words like fear, 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 fear with people who are affected by this dust throughout it. This predates the Scarecrow's appearance, and this is also, remember when I brought up that there was that character called the Green Death?
Yes.
In the Shadow, who he had a fear ray that made you see your worst fears?
Yeah.
He came after Hugo Strange and Batman, so technically this idea of this thing that makes you experience your worst fears comes with Batman before the Shadow. That's the first. So the first time a fear toxin was shown was not until the 1960s.
Shadow was still going on after Batman came out.
Yeah, it was 1941, I think, when the Green Death showed up, and that was a few months before Scarecrow.
Okay.
But Hugo Strange had already done the fear toxin or fear dust thing in 1940, so we beat both of them. But these days we just associated it with Scarecrow. So poor Doctor Strange. So Scarecrow didn't get until the 1960s, and it was kind of a mysterious mist that made Batman and Robin feel afraid of heights, and that was actually 26 years after Scarecrow first showed up, so he actually didn't have fear toxin at all for close to 30 years.
He just hung it out in fields and mugged people that walked by him.
So let's see, other Scarecrow imagery. Yeah, there's some other Scarecrow imagery from the Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale stuff with like Scarecrow on the horseback, or seeing like the flames are up from the mask. That's all from the comics. Also, in the original script, the Gordon didn't originally drive the Batmobile.
Okay.
It was like remote controlled type of thing, or he didn't really need. He actually in the original script he didn't even need the Batmobile to take over anything, or maybe he did. It was a remote control. I forgot. But Gordon definitely wasn't in the Batmobile. That was a new thing that they added into it. But the idea of the train fight is kind of similar to the fight between Bane and the John Paul Valley Batman in the Nightfall story. Okay. Versus similar beats, but in the original script, it was actually supposed to be on the top of the train, which would have been a little wilder, I think, a little less realistic for them to stay on there. And apparently, you're supposed to hear Roz scream when the train went down. I don't know. I'll be back. That. Yes. Or maybe I won't be. And then we get into I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. This is kind of a debate here.
You're gonna kill me.
Yeah. Now in the comic, the closest thing we got was the Messiah of the Crimson Sun, which is that story where there was a fear toxin in the water supply. Not fear toxin. There was a poison in the water supply that we're trying to ignite. And in that one, Batman steers Ra's al Ghul's like escape pod into the rays of the sun.
Okay.
And he disintegrates. And Robin's like, Batman, you killed him. And Batman's like, did I, Robin? Did I? And then the audience at the time was like, you did kill him. Now Ra's al Ghul does show up again in the Resurrection Night story, but that's kind of the closest thing where Batman had a hand in Ra's al Ghul's demise.
Like, oops.
I guess on a separate note, would you say that the whole I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you is breaking the no-kill rule?
Yeah.
Debatable?
Yeah, I think he could have saved him.
Yeah.
And it was stuck in Raisha's craw,
Yeah.
for a long time, but I don't know. I think that could have actually been handled differently.
This whole thing is also based on some sort of popular like a thought experiment in philosophy, like the train. It's two trains, and do you save one person versus 3 or 4 or some shit like that? I'm not doing it justice, but it's some popular thought experiment that's supposed to make you think about morals, and they do this again in Dark Knight with the two boats. So there is this preference from Goyer and Nolan, it seems like, to add these like popular philosophical things, especially in their third act.
Yeah.
And I always appreciated that. I know I'm going way around your question, but I really wanted to just talk about some shit that I knew.
Yeah.
But what was the question again?
Whether or not
Anyway,
that
broke
was
the no kill rule.
yeah.
I mean, basically yes, but I think that
He makes a deliberate choice not to save.
in this version of Batman, I think that he allows the person to die. Basically, it is kind of killing indirectly, yes.
Yeah.
So you have a Batman that has chosen to do this, but it's a guy that's engineered apparently like Illuminati level fucking
Right.
catastrophes.
Yeah.
So you kind of let it slide in the context of this story.
Right,
I
but
think.
also at the end of the Dark Knight, he's this guy who's been terrorizing and killing so many people, and he still saves Joker. You know, so
Yeah.
it's just like when
That's
is
true.
it? How big is a big threat? Where you're just like, okay, this has to be done because you got two very different.
It's just whether or not
Big
Batman
gun,
had
yeah.
his coffee that night.
Yeah,
It's
or not.
chalked up to
Your
them
turn, yeah.
writing it as they go. Like if they had
Yeah.
written all 3 movies out completely, and then we have something more cohesive,
yeah,
so we wouldn't have that mistake you just talked about.
right. Well,
You know what I
I think
mean?
the best compromise, in my opinion, is what if Batman he throws the thing, the train car detaches. And he's like, "Come with me" to Roz, and he tries to grab him and save him, and Roz tries to stab at him. He's just like, "No, I will.
It's
Either
the
you go
old-
down with me,
Right.
either we're both martyrs, or I'm the martyr."
Right,
And so
right.
Batman has to leave,
Right.
and then Roz decides to stay on the train.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of the old Shredder and Splinter scene
Yeah.
at the end of '89 where he's throws the knife. You know, his own evil is what really takes him down.
That was done really well.
I
that
tend to
whole
prefer that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like they just can't help themselves.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I still love Batman Begins. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily a comics versus movie thing, but
You don't like it. You
I
wish
agree
you would
with
sell.
I-
You wish you would save him.
My preferred version is what I just told you guys. It's not that I don't like it. It's just it rubs me the wrong way, but not nearly as bad as some of the other stuff that we have
Not
seen
as
in the
bad as
past.
Swear to Me.
Not swear to me, but I mean it's not as bad as other instances of Batman killing that we have seen in previous movies, and then that
Okay.
we will see after this.
Okay.
Finally, in the final scene is the rooftop scene with Gordon and Batman, which feels very satisfying considering we've never really seen that up in this point. We saw the GCPD
Right.
rooftop in Batman Forever, but we never saw Gordon talk to Batman there.
Okay.
And in this version, in the original script, this was a very important line they cut. They said the task force against Batman was disbanded after he saved the city,
Okay.
which explains that, and also is kind of a little suspect considering the fact that he endangered all those cops' lives on the freeway.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're just
Right,
like, yeah, let's just let you have a
The
signal.
Tumblr scene.
Yeah. And just
Yeah.
like, let's let you have a signal on the rooftop to
Right.
get that guy, that guy that sent us all to the hospital. Let's have him help us out.
Right.
And then the coda of, hey, take this guy has a taste of the theatrical like you, and shows him the Joker card.
Yeah.
That's the idea of that is similar to year one, where at the end of year one, Gordon says, hey, I got to talk to Batman
Right.
about this guy who calls himself the Joker.
Right.
So very similar.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we are at the end of Batman Begins. We've gone into a
Oh,
lot
there's
of
the other thing that I really love about
well,
that
not at the end
last
of Batman
scene
Begins. Yeah.
is that, and when he hands him the card, he's like, "We wear bulletproof vests. They use armor-piercing bullets."
Yeah.
So I love
Escalation.
that thought of kind of one-upping each other. Like
Yeah.
Batman takes it to this level of theatricality.
Yeah.
And then we got this fucking Joker motherfucker that is really, I don't know. I thought I hadn't read a whole lot of the comics at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that explanation in the movie, this kind of arms race of theatricality, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. There's kind of a opposite approach that, and I like both, is the Begins idea is the idea that Batman starts out to take down street crime, but then that sort of inadvertently creates these supervillains to go up against him. And then the New 52 and stuff like Gotham, more modern takes are Gotham's always been bad, and it's
Right.
get worse and worse criminals, and it creates such a chaotic
Right.
city that it needs a Batman. All right, well, we are done with Batman Begins. So, Wolfie, let's counter up. What is our score?
I counted it off
Wolf.
camera to be sure.
Yes. What do we got? On
It's
here?
it's actually pretty close. It's a tally of 10 to 9. The movie representation takes the cake by
Movie
1
wins
point.
by 1.
We love
It was
Batman.
so close.
That's
It
weird.
always
You
wins
think
by
the comics would win every time?
Yeah. I thought it was
Interesting.
going to be I thought it was going to be a blowout on the movie side, just because
Nope.
we've actually had quite many years of some pretty good Batman shit.
Yeah,
Right.
but you never
Especially
know.
with the Nolan stuff.
Yeah, but right now, all right, so movie takes the cake on this one. We will be doing the same type of thing with The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, and at the end, we will do our own average tally with all 3 movies to see who ultimately wins, Nolan or the comics. Right now, Nolan takes this one, but we'll see what happens with the other 2.
Round 2 and
Yep.
3 coming up.
So that is it for Batman Begins stuff. You guys have anything else to add?
I think I'm good. You?
I'm good. That is a lot of Batman Begins
Yes.
Thank you.
dissection. That was nice.
Thank
Yes.
you, Ben, for your tutelage.
Yes.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Your bat tutelage.
Yes.
This is
So
Bat Tutelage.
Please
the
follow
podcast.
us on Twitter as well as Instagram, where we are SuperHouse Pod. And I am Ben Wanrider on Instagram.
I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. And check out our Facebook as well if you're on that, if you're old like us. And I think that's it. What else we got? SuperHousePod.com. And we also have SuperHousePodcast at Gmail. Please email us there. Let us know what you want what we want us to talk about. And then also, more importantly, probably is the Shasta Army.
Yes.
Patreon.com/SuperHousePodcast. Please join the Shasta Army for just $1 a month. And Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, and Shasta, of course, Alicia as well.
Thank
Let's
you.
not forget.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think that is going to do it
I think so.
for me.
Yeah, me as well.
Cool.
Well, Wolfie, peace out.
All right. Signing off. Till next time.